Hello everybody, let's fix this eyebrow. You're welcome, internet. My name is Bear with BearIndependent.com. Not .org, not .gov, not .net, .com. That's right, 12 bucks a year on GoDaddy. Yeah, big bucks. Today we're talking about when to bug out. This is a common question, probably one of the most common questions that I get. These are the stars and stripes. You may recognize them from America. That's what's going on over there, in case you're like, what is that over there? That's what that is. All right, we're talking about when to bug out. Rowdy eyebrow, behave yourself. All the time, tremendous, believe me, Melania is beautiful and Mexico paid for it. This is a constant question. Bear, when do I leave? Let's talk about it as much as we can, 1,000-foot overview. When to bug out, bugging out versus bugging in. We're going to be talking about sheltering in place in our next video, going a little bit deeper on the actuality of sheltering in place. Our next classroom video. So bugging out is basically evacuation. We're leaving now. Versus bugging in, we are sheltering in place. We are staying here. And I realize that for a lot of people are like, yeah, I know that, Bear. Cool. Glad you do. Somebody else might have needed clarification on that. You're welcome. Your primary plan should be to shelter in place. If you do not live in a place where you can hunker down and weather the storm, literal or figurative, you live in the wrong place. By the way, you should smile because you are on camera. So, but you always need a bug out plan because where you are may become untenable. We're going to discuss that a little bit in depth. So, your primary plan should be this: bugging in. That's what you should do. You should be in a place where you can bug in. And I know, Bear, you don't understand. I live in East Overshoe, Indiana, and I'm on a fixed income, and I just can't leave because of yada, yada, yada. Yes, you can. You just have not figured out a way to do it yet. Or you've counted the cost of leaving, and you've decided that it's easier for you to stay where you are. Tough love. You should shelter in place. That should be your primary line of defense. But you should always have a bug out plan or an evacuation plan because things can happen that make your little nirvana, your Valhalla, your lovely piece of sunshine in the wilderness untenable, and now we've got to go. So let's talk about what are some of those things, those bug out indicators that would indicate, hey, it's time to bug out, which is what bug out indicators means. You're welcome. I did a write-up on this on Patreon based upon an excerpt of a write-up that I did for a client at Prosperity, which is our consultancy, where we went pretty in-depth on these things. So I'm not gonna go as far in-depth here because we don't have the time here, and this is a mouth thing, not a typey thing. That's how video works. Although I could do a video of me typing, but it would probably get 0 views and y'all would be upset about it. Bug out indicators. The first thing you gotta know is what is happening in your area. This right here, this area study is really important. Really important. We've discussed this already in a previous video. And I have recommended to y'all already, go to the best words, you know what, forget it. Let's get coffee. Pause. Over here. Where's the coffee? Oh my gosh, he's got a flag on his wall with a snake on it. What is wrong with that guy? He's one of those patriots, I think. I don't really know. Okay, well, geez, I'm a little afraid. Coffee. And then the sky opens up. It says, "This is my son, my beloved, in whom I delight." And it beams down onto the coffee. I'm not being blasphemous. Okay, and we're back. Area study Forward Observer, Sam Culper. Check him out and check out the video we did on SHTF threat assessment and doing an area study. And I'm not going to go into why you need to do an area study here other than to say you need to know what's going on in your area. And a big part of that is having a network, team, tribe, bing! If you're not watching Survival Prepping for Normal People, you're probably not normal. Network, team, tribe, so you know what's going on in your area so that you can identify and then monitor your bug out indicators, which could be violent activity in your area. In your area, not on your doorstep, in your area. This could come from a conventional or an unconventional threat. This could be the sheriff's department going door to door taking people's weapons. This could be the sheriff's department responding to localized gang activity. This could be law enforcement, the National Guard. It could be county TAC teams or state TAC teams. It could be all kinds of different people in uniforms or not in uniforms that are behaving badly and or asserting their authority or lack thereof in an area, acting violently. That would cause my ears to perk up. Disruptive threats, power, water, shelter. As we've discussed already, the world right now is more or less dependent on the flow of electrons. This does not happen without the flow of electrons. These lights, you know, you can't make this expo marker without the flow of electrons. So if the power goes out, yeah, your 72-hour .gov recommended, you know, shelter-in-place kit can address, you're good for 3 days. And then what? Water stops flowing, sewage stops flowing. A lot of people heat their homes with electric heat. Things start to get ugly. Fuel stops flowing, communications stop flowing. So, disruptive threat. Okay, well, if the power's out for more than 3 days and there's violent activity going on, and we live in a bad place where we have to evac as our primary means of dealing with this situation, now my ears are really perked up. Overwhelming force. If this conventional or unconventional threat does show up at your doorstep or they're a quarter mile up the road that way, do we stand here and fight, line in the sand, I'm not going, or do we leave? And that depends entirely on the situation, your convictions, and how many souls you are responsible for at that time. Because if it's me and my wife and kids and there's a striker brigade coming down the road, we're gonna scoot out the back door, thanks. Yeah. So, overwhelming force. Food scarcity. There's no food here. Well, then ergo, the situation is untenable. If you will die staying where you are, then don't stay where you are. Bug out. What about NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical? The area becomes uninhabitable, or natural events, nature, Mother Nature. She's kind of a B word sometimes. Hurricane, tornado, wildfires, flooding, damaging hail, things of that nature. Yeah, we can't stay here because of it has become uninhabitable. Even your house. You could have an EF2 tornado that rips your roof off. I've seen it. Happened to a good friend of mine recently. You could have a giant tree that falls over that doesn't even hit your house, but the root ball lifts up the entire house, drops it again, and the house now becomes uninhabitable. Guess what? We cannot shelter in place here now because there's no shelter. So now we need to evac or bug out. And then NBC is obvious. If, nuclear, biological, chemical threats, if that exists in your area, you don't want to be there. And we will do a whiteboard on NBC and how to respond to it. So just stay tuned for that. Okay, in fact, here, I'll put this up here. That's a note to El Barro, the Oso Independiente, right there. Okay, so you need to know what your bug out indicators are before you even think about bugging out. But you need to have a bug out plan that takes into consideration these bug out indicators, even though your primary means of responding to a bad situation is sheltering in place, bugging in, okay? So all of this, you need to have an area study, you need to have a network, a team, a tribe of people that are passing intel back to the decision makers so they can compare that intel against your bug out indicator so you can make an informed decision about when we are actually going to bug out. When to bug out is the question, right? Well, this helps you figure out when to bug out. Granted, and I'll say this, if the hair is standing up on the back of your neck and your gut is in a knot, it's probably time to go. Trust your gut, man. Trust your gut. But wouldn't it be good to have the ability to make an informed decision before we have to devolve into letting our gut make decisions for us, okay? So there's all that. Then we'll come over here to this board. And as you've seen before here, I'm a big fan in understanding what is the mission, what are we trying to accomplish? Because knowing what the mission is allows us to understand if we're bugging in or bugging out, okay? So you have to have a clearly defined mission, and it needs to be more clearly defined than survive the zombie apocalypse, man. Like, got it, Todd, thanks. How? Perpetuate normalcy for the people I love in the geographical area defined by this for a length of time as this. And the ways that we're going to do that is by having stockpiled food, training, building community, and spinning up our agriculture, and then maintaining our network and building our network even further so we can operate with good intelligence in our AO to protect and feed our people so that we can continue to build our agriculture and be a blessing to our community. That's right off the top of my head. So if you don't have a clearly defined mission statement and understand the parameters of that mission, what are we trying to accomplish? If your first response is simply the bugging out, man, I'm grabbing my go bag and my AR and I'm gonna hit the road. Okay, there's a higher likelihood that you become a casualty in that environment. And if it's just you, we can debate all day the value of one man or one woman's life. And that would be a great philosophical discussion to have around a fire with an adult beverage sometime. But for me, I am responsible for the well-being, provision, and blessing of my wife and children, and then my greater family, and then my tribe, and then my mag. So there are people who are depending on me, so I can't just grab my go bag and my AR and hit the road, man. Okay? I have to be able to make informed decisions. So understanding what the mission is, combined with our area study and our bug out indicators, allows us to know, are we bugging in or are we bugging out? Now, if you're bugging in, you're going to be stationary. That seems more or less stationary. It seems pretty obvious, right? Well, it needs to be said because we're going to be here. Well, if we're going to be here, what have we stockpiled here? Who's going to come here? How much food, water, medical, shelter, fuel, ammo, weapons, commo do we have here? Because if we're all gonna bug in and there's 12 of us and we've got 4 buckets of food, here is not tenable. Maybe we should consider bugging out. How do you fix that? Understand who's going to be here, because we're going to be stationary and we understand the mission and we know what we need to stockpile here to perpetuate normalcy for the people whom we love and are responsible for. Okay? So we're stationary. We're going to be here. What needs to be here? You have to actually think about that. Write it out. Put it in your prepper notebook. What do we need? Wants are nice. You got to have your needs, right? In fact, my old man told me way back in the day when I was building my first business, I was like 18 years old. And he said, son, make a list of everything you need and make a list of everything you want. And he said, you always make sure your needs are taken care of first. All your revenue that comes in, you take care of these needs first, and then you can go over to the want. And you'll see that your list of needs is much shorter, but much more important than your list of wants. So you don't deal with wants until you've dealt with all of the needs first. And I'm telling you, in large part because of the advice of that man, I grew that company from $700 in assets at 17 years old to 1.4 mil by the time I was 22. You deal with your needs first, okay? The ability to prioritize and execute what do we need versus what do we want really matters. And you need to determine what you need based upon the fact that we're gonna be here bugging in, and our mission is to protect this tribe of people that's coming here, right? Question mark? Okay. And then bugging in will require more or less, situationally, less conditioning, because we're gonna stay here. We're not gonna put on these 60-pound rucksacks and march 80 miles that way. So for people that are, wheelchair bound or, have medical conditions or whatever, people that have less physicality than maybe they once did or they were born that way, bugging in can be a better option than bugging out, all dependent upon you being in the appropriate geographical location right now that you can stay where you are. I know, lots of caveats, but all this stuff is conditional, so I'm trying to break the conditional down for you so that it makes sense, okay? So, less conditioning, more or less, while you're bugging in. Bugging out, we're going to be mobile. What does that mean? It means stockpile there. It means we do not get a 97-pound inch bag and strap it on and try and bring everything, including the kitchen sink, with us. What it means is we're gonna carry at most 30% of our body weight total, not just on our ruck, but all of our line gear. I would prefer if you were at 20%. Now, yeah, but think about it. The vast majority of people are not out there doing the things. They're not putting on their bug out bag and their AR and their war belt or their EDC and putting on the boots that they're gonna wear when they bug out, man, and then going and walking all day, 3 days, 7 days, 10 days. Take a week of vacation, put your kit on, and just go walk through your AO. Yeah, do it. The 97-pound inch bag will kill you, not save you, okay? The potential for injury is astronomical. The more your stuff weighs, the higher your incidence of injury goes. Ask the 10th Mountain Division when they first started deploying to Trashkanistan with all this stuff. Like, we're gonna die. Not because the enemy's shooting at us, but because we have all this stuff on us. Firepower versus mobility equation. Okay, so you're mobile. That means you need to actually understand what you need to bring with you, not what you think you need to bring with you. Do I need, let's see, where'd it go? Do I need this knife and this knife when I'm bugging out? Honestly, no. No, I don't. And again, bugging out, and that's just one small example, okay? And there's I have lots of videos on bugging out on bug out bags. So you just put in Bear Independent bug out in the search bar at YouTube and you'll find them. Bugging out is to get you from where you are to where you need to be in the shortest period of time possible. It's an evacuation. It is not a stroll through the woods in the wilderness where we're gonna hunt, fish, trap, scavenge, forage, all of the things that we need. And I'm gonna bushcraft up make some ranger beads, and I'm gonna, oh look, I found a femur bone of a possum, and I'm gonna carve some beads out of that and make my ranger beads. And I'm gonna bushcraft me up a soup bowl, and I made this spoon, and then we're gonna have some watercress salad for dinner, and none of that, none of that. Get from where you are to where you need to be. The whole reason we're bugging out in the first place is because there's an imminent threat that's making our current situation untenable. We're not strolling through the wilderness. We are bugging out. We are evacing, okay? So you're mobile. That means you need to stockpile stuff there. Where there? Your bug out location. If you don't know what your BOL is, your bug out location currently, you're doing it wrong. And I'm telling you this out of love. You have your priorities backwards. You need to identify where you are going first. We will get to that in a minute, but you must know where you're going. This requires more conditioning. More conditioning. My rucksack weighs anywhere between 45 and 60 pounds depending on what kind of conditioning I am doing that day. and I generally walk 2.4 to 3.2 miles with it at a pace, at a good clip. And it's not walking. I'm borderline jogging with this thing on. I'm going. I'm doing the Ranger Shuffle, baby. Right? I'm going. Add in a rifle. Now you remove this motion. The locomotion of your arms actually moves. Now add in a rifle. You get more of a swing going, right? Put your boots on. Wear your belt. That belt, guess where your belt's sitting? Right on top of your hip flexors. Guess what you're using while you're shuffling with your rifle? Your hip flexors. Guess what's gonna hurt like hell when you get done? Your hip flexors. Which is why you need to do these things. You're going to need more conditioning to bug out. If you're hoping that when you bug out, everything's gonna go smoothly and you're just gonna do it, you need to understand that you do not rise to your level of expectation, you rise to your level of training. So if you're not training this, you're not gonna be some super ultra high speed tactical badass, even though that's the image you have in your head. You're gonna be a casualty. So, you require more conditioning when you're bugging out. How do I know? I do this all the time. All the time. We went from truck talks to ruck talks. There are a lot of ruck talks here at this video as well. So as you're bugging out, we'll go back to bugging in. Bugging in requires Kydex. Bugging in requires that you do an area study, that you understand where you are. You need to work your network and your team to develop intelligence in your area. There's going to be different gear and a different loadout while you're bugging in. This stockpiling stuff here, this gear, and by gear I mean food, water, shelter, weapons, commo, medical, blah, 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 all the blah, blah, blahs. The profile of this stuff is going to be different here bugging in because we're stationary than the profile of gear and loadout over here when we're bugging out because we're mobile, right? Firepower versus mobility here. Okay, we want to be swift. We want to move with a sense of purpose when we're bugging out. So we can't have tons of gear, which is going to make our loadout look different than when we're bugging in. Now, say inside our fence line, you know, I would probably run my war belt. It's 2 pistol mags, 2 rifle mags, a blowout kit, a canteen, an E&E pouch, and a dump pouch, pistol, and a multi-tool. Right there on a H harness, right? Throw that on with a rifle. Now I've got a pistol and 2 spare mags and a rifle and 2 spare mags. Okay, so, you know, 220-ish rounds of ammo. If I was working the perimeter of my property, good to go. Good to go. If I was on security, whole nother story. Plate carrier, all the things. Got videos on the setup on all of that as well. Just search bar it. But if I was just working in the garden, man, my EDC will do it, right? I got a pistol, got a reload, I got a pocket knife. I'm good, right? I'm good. Versus bugging out, and even then, you should understand the area that you're moving through when you're bugging out and have maps of the area that you're operating in, both bugging in and bugging out, that if you have to break contact or if you find yourself in a firefight, how many mags is too many mags? Well, that comes back to the fact that we're mobile and we need to be able to actually carry our load. Maybe we don't need 17 mags when we're bugging out. So, or maybe we have waypoints and spider points where we have caches in place, where we have PPCs, pre-positioned caches full of stuff. Because we're mobile, we can't carry all the things that we'd like to have. So we need some redundancy, we need some resupply. You see how it all kind of works together? Okay, so lastly, the thing that you need to understand is when it comes back to the mission when we're bugging out is to get to our BOL, our bug out location. That is the mission. You know, it's not the hills are alive with the sound of music, right? It's not we're gonna go bushcraft us, you know, Townsend's freaking log shelter in the middle of a field somewhere and, you know, build a clay chimney and carve some spoons. It's not that. The mission when we're bugging out is to get to our BOL as quickly as possible, our bug out location. Understanding that, this is quintessential. The bug out location rules them all. The bug out location is the determining factor of your bug out plan. Yes, you need a bug out plan. You need multiple bug out plans because you should have multiple bug out locations, which comes back to waypoints and spider points, different places on the map that you could land if you needed to. But your bug out location informs your bug out plan. Your bug out plan is dictated by the bug out location, okay? Once you know where you're going, you can develop a plan or plans to get there. Once you have developed a plan to get there, then you can figure out, what is my bug out vehicle? Is it my feet? Is it a jet ski? Is it a Black Hawk? Is it a Land Rover? Is it a side-by-side? Is it a horse? What is it? Okay, well, that's based upon the bug out plan, because a jet ski isn't going to work in a lot of places, And then once you know the bug out location, which allows you to put together the bug out plan, which allows you to look at things like bug out vehicles, then you can figure out what needs to be in your bug out bag. This is the last consideration, because the rest of these things are going to define the mission parameters for you. So if you're building a bug out bag without knowing what vehicle you're gonna use to enact the plan to get to your bug out location, because the mission is to bug out and get to your bug out location, you're doing this backwards. And so because you're doing this backwards, these bug out bags end up getting really heavy. And because they're really heavy, people aren't mobile with them. They don't go and get the conditioning to do them, to use them, and then they will become a casualty. So it's this cyclical issue where people end up killing themselves, literally and figuratively, with the weight of their bug out bag, because they don't understand what they need, because they haven't clearly defined the mission. They don't know where they're going. They don't know how they're getting there. They don't know any of the parameters that they really need to know to make the bug out bag on their back useful. Okay, so in order for it to be useful beyond the hope that, well, I'll take my sill tarp out and make a lean-to shelter here, and then I'm gonna take my silky saw and bushcraft a fire reflecting wall here, and then I'm gonna use my sleeping pad and sleeping bag here. Cool, that's camping. I'm not going camping, I'm bugging out. And so understanding where you're bugging out to, how you're getting there, that informs what do I need to carry. Okay, and also that's seasonal, that changes. That's a big part of why my ruck goes from 45 to 60 pounds. Winter is just more of a mother to operate in for those of us that have winter. Now we have less winter here than a lot of y'all do, but we have more winter here than some of y'all do. So that is when to bug out. That is this. When should we bug out? Okay. We have our bug out indicators, which we understand from our area study. We're receiving intel from our network, which we're comparing against our indicators, which allow us to, even though we want to be sheltering in place, that's our primary means of dealing with bad stuff. If we need to evac, we can look at our indicators based upon our area study with our intel from our network, make an informed decision to enact the mission that we're gonna bug out, and we're gonna bug out to our bug out location. We know where our bug out location is because we've already identified it, because we've done an area study, which informs our gear and our loadout. So the bug out location dictates the bug out plan, which considers the bug out vehicle, which then becomes what is the loadout for our bug out bag. Okay? Okay. I hope that was understandable. I hope that makes sense. Because a lot of people are like, well, I'm gonna bug out when the zombies are up my block. Good luck. Luck. Hope is not a strategy, okay? Hope is not a strategy. That's a strategy. And that's the point of this, is to give you guys something that's actionable that you can put together so that you can have your list of bug out indicators. I hope, even though it's not a strategy, that you found this useful. If you did find it useful, please consider subscribing and liking this video and sharing it. The whole reason this exists is to share this, okay? Special thanks to our patrons. We would not and could not do this without you. If you've ever wanted to join Patreon, you can click the baby bear. I think he's up here. He might be up here. It's a little baby bear leaned up against a tree like this. $1 a month gets you access to 24 exclusive pieces of content per month at Patreon. People say, Bear, how are you going to respond to the YouTube apocalypse? I'm already on Patreon, bro, and we're working on the rest of it. I really, truly hope that this helps. I'm interested in your comments. Let me know what else you'd like to talk about in the prepper classroom. Shalom, y'all.